Welcome to this week's edition of the Optimum Synergy Podcast with our friend and your host, Adam Huber. Join Adam as he takes you on a journey into the realm of detailing, business, and beyond. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Sit back and enjoy the ride.
Welcome back to the Optimum Synergy Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Huber. Today we have a pretty incredible story of overcoming adversity. And I know, guys, we have had a lot of podcasts about overcoming adversity and everything like that. But I think that these particular podcasts are especially powerful because it basically is letting you guys know that no matter what happens to you in life, you can succeed no matter your circumstances. And we have had several people on, from Tim MacDonald and a couple of other people who have had some pretty great stories about adversities that they've overcome. But the guest that we have on today, I think actually might have the rest of them beat. And it's a pretty incredible story. He's an incredible gentleman. Jonathan Morrison, is that right?
Monson,
sorry. I don't know why I said Morrison. Monson.
No worries.
Jonathan, how old are you and how long have you had your detailing business?
I am 35 years old, and I've had my actual business I've had for 3 years. The name and everything has been around part-time for 5.
Okay, so you've been around the block. You've lived a little bit of life at 35. And arguably, when we were talking in this pre-roll of the podcast, when we were getting set up audio-wise and everything, you've probably lived more life than some people have at 60, 70, 80 years old. So I can't wait to dive into this. Guys, you're going to want to really tune in and listen to what has happened in this man's life and how it not only has changed him for a better person, but how he has overcome it and didn't let it define him. So, Jonathan, why don't you tell us, where did this passion, where does your story, I guess I'll probably go back to, where does your story even begin? Like, let's start from square one. But, obviously after being born, we don't need to go through that whole thing.
Well, back in 1983. Well, my passion for detail started with my father. He was an insurance appraiser, but before that he was a mechanic, and we wet sanded an old 1980 Dodge Power Wagon and worked on a bunch of classics after that. But my first vehicle I ever paint corrected, in air quotes, would be a 1980 Dodge Power Wagon with my father, and that's where I really fell in love with making things look the absolute best that they can. And so from there,
it all started with Dad, as yeah. It does all too often with a lot of detailers. So from there then?
From there, I promised my father, we were working on that same truck one day, and I promised my father I would never be a mechanic. And from there, I ended up a mechanic. So for 13 years, I ran shops, and he did detail on the side. I've always really had a passion for making things look nice, and the first kind of shops I ran were Jiffy Lubes, so we did the vacuuming and things, and I thought it was the greatest thing to wash the outside of the windows and the inside of the windows instead of just one or the other, and started doing just extra little stuff in my jobs, and just always had a passion for detail. And to be quite honest, the precipice that pushed me into business was I ran so many shops. I had probably 20 jobs running shops as manager. I've been a manager since I was 16. And just one day got fired. Pretty crazy story. I was at home and somebody had an accident at the shop, and the boss decided that it was my fault, even though it wasn't my day off, and I got fired. So,
oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I said, you know what, screw it. I don't want to work for somebody else anymore. It seems I always run into a wall. You reach a point where you're manager or your district manager. I've been a multi-unit manager, and you can't get any further up, and it feels like you're not making progress. And I said, let's just do it for ourselves, because if we do it for ourselves, there's no limit. I can go as big as or as small as I want. And that's what we did.
So this is when you decided to start going out on your own and do your own detailing business then?
Yeah, we started with a Ford Focus, removed all the seats, and I had a Abyssal green machine, and that's it.
Oh yeah. Anybody that didn't start with that little machine doesn't know the struggle. Where like the hose is so short that you have to put the machine up on the seat or something like that in order to get into the footwells of both sides. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Been there, done that. So what age was that at?
I was 30. Oh, what am I? 35. I was 33.
Okay. All right. So started it a little bit later than some of the other people that we've had on, which is definitely not a bad thing. But let's kind of go back to, you've had some pretty incredible things that have happened to you before this, right? That have kind of shaped you as a person and set you up for success when you got your detailing business. Is that kind of correct? Would you summarize it that way?
Absolutely. Willpower and mindset, two of my favorite words.
Okay. So what was the first event that you can remember that you think helped you change willpower and mindset then, that using your two words?
I actually help teach and train people on mindset because of some of the stuff I've been through. So, and this does tend to sometimes get emotional. So if I quiver, I apologize. But when I was 15 years old, I was nearly killed and fought for my life. I had my face crushed. Gang violence. Guy sucker punched me in the side of the face. He was actually somebody I played basketball with every Saturday for 2 years. So I knew him. And that's why he got the first hit in. I stood my ground and I defended myself against 3 other people, walked home, called my own ambulance, and found out that my face was in my mouth. So people look back on that and they recall that story and they think, wow, that's a terrible, terrible thing. And I disagree. I think that was the absolute best day of my life, because that's the day at 15 I realized that life is so important. And every day, living like your last will get you further than anything.
Just out of curiosity, Jonathan, were you bullied a lot as a kid? Like picked on a lot?
Not necessarily picked on a lot. I was a little weird. Going through grade school and stuff, I actually used to get stickers every time I would interact with somebody. I went to the counselor every day, and I didn't get along with people very much. People made fun of me, but it was because it wasn't so much I was bullied. It was more I chose to be my own self. I started my own clubs. I did my own things. And I didn't even play with the kids on the playground. I would go over, and I remember I would play Double Dragon by myself. I would imagine that I was one of the 2 guys from Double Dragon, and I'd swing around poles and kick air bad guys. And,
Is that like an old karate movie?
It's an old karate game, yeah.
Oh. Okay. I'm not familiar with it, which is, I'm kind of a gamer, so, was, I guess I should say. The reason why I asked is because this might be awfully surprising to a lot of people listening to this, because they might think that because I do a podcast, because I do videos, and because of who I am now, that I was always kind of this extroverted kind of person. And that was definitely not who I was when I was in grade school, middle school, high school. I was an incredibly introverted person. And the only reason why I asked if you were bullied and picked on is because I've had situations not even close in similarity to yours, like as far as severity went, but I have had that happen to me quite a few times when I was younger, where, ganged up on and had multiple people I had to fight off and everything like that. And it obviously doesn't always work out, because 1 versus 3 doesn't always I'm not good at math, as everyone knows, but that doesn't equal out. It's hard to defend yourself. So from that, you got your, let's just say, your face beat in, and you now have this new appreciation for life. But you also, correct me if I'm wrong, because I do think I remember reading this, that you decided to take up like some sort of martial arts then?
Oh, no, they actually martial arts is what saved my life. I'd been studying martial arts for 7 years with my father. And That's the only reason. The doctor said if I'd have been hit one more time, because he only hit me once. Between all three of them, they only hit me once. And when I fell to the ground, somebody said that's enough. And the guy that said that's enough had an arm as big as my head. And I remember standing up and I looked at him and I said, how come you didn't do anything? And he said, I got kids, man. That was gang violence. And I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't really know that my face was crushed or anything like that. I remember I checked my nostrils to make sure I could breathe because I'd broken my nose 2 weeks prior. And the doctor said that probably saved my life. Had he hit me square in the face, he would have probably killed me. And I tilted my head to protect my nose. But he also said if he had touched me one more time that I'd have been dead. So if it weren't for my martial arts training, I probably would have died that day. What
martial arts were you in?
I started with Taekwondo, but moved on to Kung Fu, Wing Chun, and I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan. So, of course, Jeet Kune Do.
The only reason why I asked is because I took quite a few years of Taekwondo as well. When I was younger, obviously older, I haven't done it, but I have a son who's 3 years old, and I told my wife that I really wanted him to get into jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or something like that when he was young. And the purpose of it was not to hopefully ever have to defend himself or even to have him have leverage over someone. I have always pretty firmly believed that when you do something like martial arts or anything like martial arts, you have this incredible self-discipline and you hold yourself just a little bit more accountable to certain things. Is that kind of the same experience that you've had through martial arts as well?
Oh, absolutely. Martial arts opened me up. As we talked, I wasn't really into people. I didn't talk a lot and wasn't really friendly with folks. But when I started doing martial arts, I started to open up. I had some friends, had some people that, shared martial arts with me. And that brought me out of my shell as a kid.
Yeah, I think it's just because you just get this self-confidence, right? You have this very specific training program that's very tiered, has many, many, many tiers in it. And when you start to be able to perform something and do something and advance in something like that, you start to believe in yourself that you actually can do more and do something, more than just sitting in front of a TV playing video games, right? Like you're actually accomplishing something and it gives you self-confidence. Is that kind of what your experience has been as well?
Absolutely. Confidence is huge, especially in business.
Oh, yeah. Well, we will absolutely get into that because I fully agree. If you're talking to someone and you're not confident, it will erode away that sales pitch real fast, quicker than anything else.
Yep.
Okay, so you said at 15 that had happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 15, you have this pretty tragic event happen in your life where you got pretty close with a brush of death. Was that the end of it? That's just, there was no repercussions afterwards. You didn't have any healing or anything like that you had to go through.
Oh no, that was the beginning, my man. That was the beginning. That day is that's the event that taught me life is so important. But the 2 years that followed were the hardest, and I'll briefly touch them. I don't like to talk too much in depth about them because they do get emotional. It's definitely a victory. It's a positive emotion. It's not negative, so I don't want anybody to think I cry because I think negatively on that day. But the 2 years that followed, he actually followed me for a year out of it. He would show up at work, the guy that jumped me, and the reason why is because he got beat up afterwards. He went home and his father beat the crap out of him. His father was a parole officer, so the kid only got 16 days in jail. Nearly killed me, and only got 16 days in jail. And we went through stuff with my parents. My father wanted to shoot the guy, and long story short, I actually brought a rifle in his trunk to the courthouse and never used it or anything, but there was some craziness. And the year that followed, I was, like I said, stalked pretty much. And it wasn't until one day I said, that's enough. I've had enough. And I actually went to where it happened, and I stood in the center of the street and I screamed out loud as I could, "That's enough. I'm done." I decided that I was going to live my life no matter what anybody said or what anybody did. And that included him. So it was more than just that day. It was 2 years worth of hell, to be honest with you.
Do you have kids, Jonathan?
Just the 4 dogs, no real ones.
Again, I don't want this story to be too much about me, but I'm just that moment that you were talking about with your dad really kind of hit home with me as well, because I've got a 3-year-old son, and I have always been incredibly worried about him going through some of the things that I had to go through as a kid. And I can absolutely say with 100% certainty that I would much rather have my leg chopped off or my arm chopped off than for him to go through anything like what I had to go through. So for your dad to do something like that, I can actually totally relate, because I just honestly don't know what I would do if something even remotely close to that happened to Benjamin. So that's rough. That's pretty rough. And that overcome that stalking issue that you had to overcome, I don't know it, like I haven't been through it, but I can imagine that, you're basically going day by day, checking over your shoulder, making sure that, that thing that you went through 6 months ago, a year and a half ago, isn't going to happen again. And you're just constantly living day to day and just not exactly terror, but just constant fear or constant on edge. Is that kind of what
2
you would
years
describe?
of anxiety. Yeah, yes, sir. I left the house with two K-bars, man. I had two knives that I had shoulder holsters for that are completely illegal in New York. Always had a baton on me, and I always wore steel-toe boots, and I had a pressure point stick in my pocket. I had more weapons than anybody I would ever hang out with.
And all that at 16, 17, around there?
16, 17, 18.
Yeah, that's a lot. Again, this is not something that I understand, but having known a couple of military members, they say that when they are in an active war zone for so long, where you're basically you're always on high alert. Your body just gets used to being on a high alert all the time. Adrenaline's always going. And again, for anybody who is a military member or anything like that, I'm not trying to say that I understand your struggle or anything like that. I just am simply saying this is what I've heard from other military members that I've talked to, that I'm friends with. And all of a sudden you come back home and it's just like the dial goes from an 11 or 12 out of 10 to now all of a sudden everything's down to like a 4 or 5, and there's no threats. Everything's easy. You don't have to watch your back or anything like that, but just the slightest things just set you off, and it's hard to come back down from a year's worth of just high adrenaline, high intensity, always watching your back type of thing. So anybody who's a military member, I'm sure could probably somewhat understand what you're going through. Again, you're not in a combat zone, but this was your own personal hell that you had to go through.
Yeah, and just to throw it out there, my father was a Marine, and what the military does for us, with what I've been through, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they come back from a war zone and reintroduce themselves into society, because I still to this day have things like I won't detail if my gut doesn't tell me that it's okay and safe. We're mobile, and I've been to places where I parked my van and somebody did a drug deal right in front of me, and I called my customer and said, I apologize, but your neighborhood is not safe for me to detail in, because I refuse to put my back towards the potential of danger.
Mm-hmm. And so where are you located at, Jonathan?
We're in Washington State. We're in South King County, so the bad areas are like Tacoma.
Okay. The only reason why I'm asking is because, I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We don't really even understand what gang violence is, or, what quote unquote bad neighborhoods are. So just wanted to get an idea of where you were at. Okay. So you've had a couple of rough years. What happened when you turned 18 and moved on from there?
Well, the story's crazy, but because of the stuff I've been through, I went into mental training, and I studied SCARS, which is Situational Combat Assertive Response System. It's scientific fighting, basically avoiding the altercation before it ever happens. And I started training people in that. But basically, I used my hardship to teach others because I never wanted anybody to go through what I went through. And that's kind of the theme of my life, is I use hardship to train and teach others. And that's what I did. I went into leadership. I started managing a pool store, the back room of a pool store at 17. And from then on, I've always been in automotive after that as a manager. And I just teach and teach and teach. That day taught me that everyone needs to know my story because it teaches that every day could be your last. And that's what makes us so powerful.
Yeah. And, the sad part about it is I really don't think for the majority of people that somebody will say out of the thousands of people that listen to this podcast, there's only going to be a very few select people, like 1%, that are going to come away from it and they are going to go home, hug their kids, hug their wife, appreciate life. But it ends up only being for a day or a couple of days or whatever, because they just haven't had to experience something like that. And it's unfortunate, but just us as human beings, it's almost like we have to go through something like that in order to actually learn from it.
It's honestly, it's the saddest condition that humans have. And it's one of the biggest struggles that business owners have, is they wake up every day and they believe that their profit and loss is the end of the world. And it's not. It's the beginning of your business. You learn from your mistakes. And if you treat every day like it's your last, you wake up every day and when you take your first breath, you say thank you. It changes your entire day, man. It'll make your business explode if you appreciate everything that hits you.
What do you do every morning to appreciate the day that you're about to go through, just out of curiosity?
I schedule gratitude. I wake up every morning and I spend an hour with my family and my dogs. And I walk around my house and I say thank you, even for the smallest things.
Something for people to learn.
It really is. It is. And like I said, it's, when you have something that's so powerful in your life, I call it my superpower. People think, like I said earlier, people think because I had my face crushed that's, oh, what a sad day. The poor guy was only 15. It's like, I don't want your pity. I have a superpower that you don't have, and it takes me to levels that you'll never reach. I don't need pity. I need you to see that if you treat every day as your last day, that your business is going to explode, that your relationships are going to get better, and that you're going to love your kids and your family more than you do. It's going to make your entire life change. And it all starts with gratitude. I could have walked away from that 2 years later and just let it control my life. There's people that are victims of violent crime that still don't have jobs to this day because of anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could have easily done a 180 and been depressed and suffered again I don't know what the actual term would be. But PTSD, because just constantly living in fear and having such a horrible thing happen to you, and then it just controls your life.
And people let their businesses do that to them.
Yeah, and that I think we will actually probably get into because when we talked prior, you wanted to get into how we can improve this industry. But one quick thing, if you don't mind, again, that I'll interject about the event that happened to you. Everyone that's listened to that is a regular listener to this podcast knows that I constantly reference another podcast called the MF CEO Project with Andy Frisella. And Andy is the CEO of a supplement company called First Form. And I don't know exactly how old Andy was, but many years ago, he ended up getting stabbed in the face multiple times by someone because he was defending, I believe, I don't remember the story exactly, a black woman from a racial violent altercation, and ended up getting stabbed in the face multiple times. And it ruined his life for a couple of years. He actually did let it control his life. He got depressed. He ate tons of food and it was just extremely depressed. And then one day, I won't go into the whole story. If you guys want to hear the story, you need to go to the podcast, download the episode that he talks about. I do believe it's episode 1. If not, it's in the first 5 episodes. But he ended up having an event happen to him where he decided that he wasn't going to let it control him anymore. And now this guy who's worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, owns multiple successful companies, says that he would give up literally everything that he owns currently before he would give up the scars on his face from that stabbing. And the reason being is that, or just the event period, because it ended up teaching him so much about life, and it gives him something that is so unique over other people that he doesn't blend into the crowd, and he doesn't want to blend into the crowd. So you saying that, that's kind of the same similar thing that I'm picking up from you. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. That's a powerful story, man. I'm going to go check that out.
You probably should, because I think you will end up relating to it a lot. You'll relate to his story a lot. And if you don't listen to that podcast, it is an incredibly good podcast for business owners to listen to, because Andy's a little bit like me, where we just tell it how it is, and we don't try to pull too many punches. So I can just respect that. Okay, so let's talk about.
Can I just jump in? I just want to say that guy's got such a powerful story, man. Can you imagine at the end of a bad day where you had, you go to 3 details and, people took the wrong pictures and the details are completely trashed, and you work your butt off for 14 hours and you get home at the end of the day and 3 of them complain, all 3 of them. And you look in the mirror and you go, well, I didn't get stabbed in the face today.
Yeah. I mean, how much worse can it get than that?
Yeah. That's a fantastic story. Wow.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't almost die today. I'm pretty sure that everything's going to be all right. I mean, what else is, I'm sure that you can say the same thing for yourself. You might have a day where something like that does happen. And anybody who's been in business long enough, I don't care how good you are. I don't care whatever. You can come up with any excuse you want. If you haven't had an experience like that happen to you yet, it's because you haven't been in business long enough, or you're not trying hard enough, period. End of story. And I can see for you, Jonathan, having something like that happen. And then at the end of the day, I mean, you feel beat up, but then you go to the mirror and you're like, you know what? At least I didn't get my face punched into my mouth and almost die from it. I'm pretty sure I'll be all right. So,
amen. That's what I do. On those rough days, we all have them, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to. And I do quite a bit of coaching. Well, I wouldn't say coaching. Coaching is probably too big of a term. I try to help as many just business owners in general as I can. And one of the things that I actually will steer away from is if I don't feel like, or if I don't know for a fact that a business owner hasn't gotten punched in the mouth a couple of times and recovered from it, I tend to not want to work with them, because I want to know that they have that grit in them to overcome situations like that, a bad review or angry customer or whatever. Like, I need to know that if I give you critical criticism, that you can take it and build off of it and not crawl into a hole and think that the world is ending.
That's a mindset too. And, you hit a huge point there is if they haven't been through some hardships, you don't like to help them a lot. If they're not willing to talk about their mindset, I don't help people. Yeah. I call it massive collaboration too. I hate using the word coach or mentor. It sets me in a place above people. And I believe I'm equal. I believe I'm equal with everybody. When we work together, we're collaborating, because when I help you, it solidifies my principles. And when you need help from me, it allows me to teach, which again solidifies my principles. So it's just massive collaboration, really.
And not only that, but have you found personally that when you teach someone something, you actually learn what you're teaching even better than what you thought you knew about it before? Absolutely. It also holds you accountable too. Yeah. No, amen to that. You can't teach somebody the wrong way to do something and then get mad they did it wrong. Well, not only that, but if you do something wrong, you're in a position where someone will call you out. Even you're more likely to get called out because you're supposed to be the expert on the situation, right? And all of a sudden, you mess it up. Well, you're supposed to know what you're doing. Yeah, been there, done that. Yeah, especially with live video. Okay, so your detailing business, is there anything with that how did you start it? Like, was the beginning of that really easy and breezy and went off like without a hitch?
No, we got lucky though. There was some luck involved, and I say luck in it. I define luck different than everybody else. One of my mindset training principles is you define your terms. So when I say luck, all I mean is happenstances. We worked hard enough that eventually something finally happened, and what it was is we were detailing a car. And we found a wedding ring, and I have a rule that if we find anything that's so important to someone they should know right away, that's what we do. We either take a picture of it and send it to them, or we give it to them right away. We'll stop right in the middle of service and say, hey, check this out. And she was blown away. She said, I've been lying to my husband for 6 months. I can't believe you found that. And she blew us up all over Facebook. She dropped stuff in community groups, and we just took off from there, and it's been total chaos ever since.
Nice. Hopefully... I've had a couple of similar situations like that happen to my business where, you think it's just going to be your kind of like your average detail or whatever. And then just something ends up happening that makes it extraordinary. Right. And it just takes it to a whole new level. That's
our business model and mission statement. It's part of Operation Mission Detail, but our goal is to touch lives through details. My goal isn't to show up at your house and clean your car and have you be super excited about a clean car. That's my skill. My goal is to touch you when I get there. I want to know who you are. I want to shake your hand. I want to introduce myself. I'd like to know what you do for a living. I ask questions. I get to know people. And if you're not willing to get to know me, then you're not the person that I want to do business with, because I'm looking for clients that are going to create referrals and clients that are going to grow my business for me. I'm new. We're second year. We're heading into third year, and that's important. So we touch lives through details. Oftentimes I'll start that conversation and you'll find out that somebody has cancer or that there's something going on, and we don't charge. When we find something that's a happenstance in life that somebody didn't ask for, people don't go out and go, I think I want to get cancer today because I really like chemo. So we just do stuff for free for folks and go, hey, you know what? You're going through a hard time. When you're not going through a hard time, give us a call and get the premium package. But today I'm not charging you because you're going through chemo, and that's just not right.
Wow. That is, that's a different business model. How many of us can say something like that? And even myself. I've had a few instances like that where people have opened up and have admitted stuff like that. And I'll be honest, like I cut people a break pretty often when stuff like that happens. But I would be willing to bet that you go into it with the mindset of they don't owe you anything, right?
Correct.
You're doing that out of, the goodness of your heart. And even if they were to never call you 3-4 years later, it still allows you to sleep better at night.
There's a scientific reason behind it too. Stress causes cortisol. So this is part of my mindset training that I teach people. Stress causes cortisol, which causes water retention around the heart, around the waist, and it overall just bad health. The only way to fight cortisol is DHEA, and the only way to produce cortisol, or the only way to produce DHEA, is through gratitude. That feeling you get when you give something to somebody and they're like, oh my God, like, I don't know if you've ever handed somebody over the keys to a new car or something like that, but that feeling you get when somebody's just so satisfied and you get this warm feeling in your gut and you're like, ooh, butterflies, that's DHEA. That's release of DHEA, which reduces cortisol and allows business owners to take on more stress. That's the essence of Operation Mission Detail. I can take on more because I'm more grateful, more thankful, and I give more.
I have some personal experiences in that, and I won't really get into it. But yes, I do know exactly what you're talking about. And you're right. It changes your outlook. It changes your mindset for a very long period of time, knowing that you could have potentially just changed someone's life for the better because of something that you did, some small act. Okay, so one of the other reasons that I wanted you to come onto the podcast is because you have this really interesting Facebook group, and it's kind of one of the first ones that I've come across that's like this. What is your Facebook group, and can you kind of give me the premise for it? Like, what was your reasoning of even starting the Facebook group?
Can I first just say thank you for saying what you just said? Because I created the live Facebook group because I looked at groups, and I've admin groups. I've been part of Detail Business Professionals and 411 and all those types of groups, but there's nothing out there that's video based. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a group that I want to see your face. I don't want keyboard warriors. How many of us can raise our hands and say that we're so sick of keyboard warriors that it makes our heads turn blue sometimes?
Both my hands are up.
Yeah, the amount of people that I've blocked in Detail 101 is just mind-blowing because of the bad advice. And it's blatant bad advice. They're doing it on purpose. And that's what bugs me. So I'm like, you really can't give bad advice on a live video. You can, but not on purpose. You can't. You can read it. You can see it. And then Mark Zuckerberg went live, and he said, we're trying to make Facebook so comfortable that it's like being in your living room. And they came out with Portal, which is encrypted video, so that you can literally have a video conversation and have no fear that it's being recorded or that anybody else is watching it. So I was like, how do we get business owners more comfortable being on camera? Because this is where it's going. Phone calls are a thing of the past. I operate my entire business without ever taking a phone call. I do not answer my phone. That's 100% truth. The only people I call are my parents. That's it. It's either voice message or text message. I documents every conversation. So I started the group. It's called Going Live on Social Media, Tips and Tricks for Going Live and Doing Recorded Videos. It's kind of a long name. We're working on maybe finding something more catchy, but it's for any business owner, really. And it's taken off. People really enjoy it. They like to get face to face, and I'll jump in and, hey, come chat with me. If you're uncomfortable, I'll go live with you. Let's be live buddies. And that's pretty much all it's there for. It's there to help folks and make people more comfortable on camera, because it's really not that big a deal anymore.
Yeah. And the last couple of podcasts that we've done, we have been focusing pretty heavily. I started off the podcast with overcoming adversity and how we've had quite a few people on about that. But I've really wanted to turn this podcast into something that is more business oriented, more business focused. And I have this enormous passion for marketing. I really, truly believe that it is the one thing that can transform your business, bar none, is if you just do good, effective marketing. And even though it is not your intention, and I fully understand this, you doing the free details for someone when they have an adverse situation happen in their life, as dirty as it sounds, it is somewhat of a form of marketing. And the reason why is because, again, it is not your intention, but how can a person receive a gift like that and not tell multiple people that they got something like that, right? I mean, it's almost impossible. And then you have just a whole different form of marketing, which is word of mouth. And not only that, but then you have this powerful story that someone's telling about you that is just one of the best ways that you can get people to learn about your business.
I would even go a step further. I'm a guy that, again, I went through some crazy stuff. So I'm not a society kind of guy. I'm not programmed by the way we were taught and all that. I kind of picked my own way and carved my own path. And I disagree with the fact that it's dirty. I don't think it's dirty to think that if I advertise that we have Operation Mission Detail, and that's our goal in life, is to touch lives through details. I think we spread the negatives so much, and we think it's okay to share a post that's downplaying somebody or making fun of somebody, but God forbid a business owner share something that he's done that's kind. And I disagree with that. And I think anybody else that thinks that that's a bad thing is not my circle. It's not my top 5 for sure. And it's definitely people I don't want to hang out with, because I share the crap out of positive stuff. And I love to post when we do food drives and we do veteran events. We gave up our Thanksgiving 2 years ago and fed veterans and then took food out to the homeless. And that was all over my Facebook page. Because if you got a problem with that, I don't want to do business with you. You're part of the problem.
Yeah, and I certainly don't have a problem with that as long as it's not done for the vanity of the act, right?
Right.
If you're doing it because that is in your heart what you wanted to do in the first place, we should be spreading positivity. We should be spreading, things like that, because maybe it'll convince one other person to do something similar to that. And then you've started this chain reaction of great events that can happen, right? And that's kind of something we should all be striving to do instead of spreading negativity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I have a program that we have, sorry to interrupt you.
no, this is your podcast.
I have a program that we offer that if your car's been stolen, it gets recovered and it's in decently salvageable condition, we detail it for free. And the reason why we do that is because my car was nearly stolen 3 times. And each time it's happened, it's a dirty feeling. You get in your car and you're like, somebody was in my glove box and somebody did the thing, it's just, and it's not necessarily that the person was dirty. It's the act itself. Mentally, we look at our car and we go, wow, my car was broken into. So when they recover the car, I detail it for free and I make sure I have that conversation with them. I let them know I did this because I don't want you getting in that car and thinking about that negativity, because negativity holds us back. It holds negative space in our brains and it holds us back from making right decisions and good decisions throughout our day, whether you own a business or not. So I did this detail for you. So when you get in this car, I want you to think about us. And I want you to think about the positive act that happened and realize that the good outweighs the bad. No matter what the media tells you, the good outweighs the bad in this world. Otherwise, the world would already be burning.
I fully agree that I take walks down my neighborhoods and downtown and stuff like that. And for the most part, what I see is people helping out other people and people smiling at other people and all around good, positive vibes. And so, yeah, I can absolutely agree with that. So with the Facebook group, again, before the podcast came on, we were kind of talking about another passion that you have is trying to improve the industry. What exactly would you like to see improved in the industry, and what does this Facebook group tie into that at all? Absolutely.
And this Facebook group ties into all service industries. I started in automotive repair, and the biggest problem we have as any service industry is skepticism. The first inquiry is always how much is it? And we have this ego problem where because somebody asked how much is it, they're not your customer. That's the most common question that people ask. And so many business owners in the service industry are missing out on leads because they don't realize that question is being asked because they got screwed over at some point in time by someone else that does exactly what you do. And that is so powerful to think that I wasn't even associated with a guy in New York that screwed you over and you moved to Washington and suddenly you're judging my business based off the experience you had. If I just accept that and understand it, we can get past it, and it creates some of the most powerful leads you'll have, because people who have money protect their wallets. They ask the questions. How much is it? What are you doing for it? What's your package include? Those annoying customers and eccentric customers are generally the ones that will drop the $1,900 on a 2-year ceramic coating, or $2,500, or I've had details that have been $6,000 because I just took the time. And that's why I developed the videos, and that's part of what that live group is for. Is if we answer the common questions like what is the price, what's included in it, if we put that in a YouTube video and when somebody asks it, we send them a link. We eliminate 15 minutes of conversation, give them a professionally made or at least a transparent video that shows us where we are in our business and answers those questions. It's basically like handing them a sales pitch over and over and over again. You don't have to do it with every client. I front anywhere from 250 to 500 leads a month, and I only detail 30 cars.
So are you weeding out a lot of people then? Is that what
Absolutely.
You're getting at?
Absolutely. It's a matter of I hate saying it, but funnels, asking the right questions, finding out what is their value. So many people sell to the car. What's the damage on the car? I need pictures. I want to see this. I want to see that. The car could be completely bombed with dog hair, and you could go through and do a vacuum and the client could be happy. But we spend our time sometimes, dog hair. How long does it take to really get the small dog hairs out of thin hair carpet?
Oh, it's super easy. It's like 10 minutes.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's all it takes. Well, but to a client, but that could be potentially because the client's mindset is, I don't want all the dog hair out. The dog's just going to get back in the car.
Yep.
So if we cater to their mindset and ask the questions that tell us, what are your expectations? Not what can I do for you? What are your expectations? And then we answer, this is what I can do for you. and we give them the options. And you'll notice that you'll weed out a lot of people that they want the dog hair completely removed, but they want it done for $120. Mm-hmm. Even though you had that conversation that's going to take me 4 hours, and they say, well, that's okay. This guy down the street will do it for $120. Well, he's not going to do it for $120 for longer than a year because his business model is going to break. Because I have 2 people that do this for $15 an hour. That's $30, 4 hours. Multiply. Do the math. It's a negative. Mm-hmm. I'm not making any money. And so many business owners do that too.
And I've actually had that conversation with customers where, they come in and they say, I want all the dog hair removed. And I say, okay, we can absolutely do that. But my question to you is, do you still own the dog? Well, yes. Okay. Do you plan on having the dog ride with you in the car again? Well, absolutely. He rides with me everywhere. And then my next statement to them is basically something along the lines of, well, we can absolutely remove all the dog hair. Here's what the price is going to be. Now, I would not suggest removing all the dog hair, because if the dog gets back into the car and then after 1 week, 2 weeks or whatever, you have just the same amount of dog hair back on the carpet, you're actually going to feel like you wasted your money. And I don't want you to have that feeling 2 weeks from now. So if you want to, we can remove 50% of the dog hair. It's going to cost this. And I think that you might actually feel better 2 weeks from now, knowing that you didn't waste, quote unquote, waste your money. Now, what would you think about that? And I've had people say, no, I want all the dog hair removed anyways. Okay, no problem. And then there's other people that say, you know what? Actually, you're right. That makes a lot of sense. Let's just go with that. And then they move forward. And then every so often I would get a text message saying, hey, just wanted to say thanks for saying something like that. I hadn't thought it through. And here I am 2 to 3 weeks later, car's got just as much dog hair back in it as it did before. So thank you for that. And those are the types of things that you're doing right as a business, is when you get messages like that.
Well, and the worst case scenario is you get done with the detail, you do your final walkthrough. And if you're not doing a pre-walkthrough and a post-walkthrough, you're losing. Just throwing that out there. But when you do your final walkthrough and they're like, you know what? I know we talked about it and I said 50%, but I want to pay the additional. You've added the value in there. You've had the educational conversation. In the worst case scenarios, you're going to do it anyway. You're going to get your money. As long as you have that conversation, that pre and post walkthrough conversation. But I'd go one step even further for the guy that says yes and he wants all of it removed. I would be honest with them and say, listen, my goal is to have a lifetime client. When I'm done with this vehicle, I want you to be so blown away with the service and the experience that you're going to use me again. So it doesn't make sense for me to get all of this dog hair out and not set you up for a maintenance plan. We offer details as low as $74 a month. Yes, you have to pay up front for a year, but why don't we just take care of this dog hair for the next year for $850? Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, the guy that wants all the dog hair out of the car is going to go, you know what, you're right. It doesn't make sense to get it all out because you're damaging the carpet. When you got short hair carpet and you're using a stone, you're damaging that carpet. Yeah. There's only times you can do it.
Yeah. So, Jonathan, what do you think our industry needs the most for change? I know we were going to touch on that a little bit beforehand, and we have been kind of touching on it, but what are, let's just say 3 points that you see over and over and over again that you think detailing professionals could learn from and try to do better on?
Mindset, education, and process.
You mind going into an explanation of each one of those?
Absolutely. Mindset. So many times I deal with just people that are, frustrations and anger or anxiety. They get the best of them when they're on a detail or when they're struggling to do something. We see weird stuff. I found an egg that had been in a console for 6 months. The customer didn't even know it was there, thought it was mold in the back. That was the smell. So we run into stuff where it's like, I don't know if I can get this out. And I told this customer that I was going to, you know what I mean? Because it's under the seat and we didn't know. And we freak out. We panic. And what I teach people is about the reptilian brain. A reptilian brain sees everything. Everything goes through that brain first. There's 5 segments to the brain, and the reptilian brain is first. It's the fight or flight. And this is why I'm so good at it, because I had the day where I had to fight or flight. And I trained my brain to understand that frustrations, anxiety, all those struggles that you go through, that's your reptilian brain going, should we fight or should we flight? And you pause and you go, what am I about to learn? So the moment you get frustrated, you literally take a physical step backwards. You're standing up, you take a physical step backwards. That takes your brain into a recession mode, and you go, what am I about to learn? And it changes the entire way you operate your business. Your frustrations now become your fuel, your aggravations now become your fire, and momentum is just a thing that happens. So mindset is step one. Always. Process, okay. I came from Jiffy Lube. I like watching motocross, and I like watching races, and I like watching, fast cars, and you've got the pit crews that do their thing. And if that wrench is in the wrong place, how mad do you think the guy that's putting that tire on is going to be? How mad do you think that driver, that whole team is like, bro, you left your torque wrench in the wrong place. It added 30 seconds to the lap. We lost the race by 28 seconds. You do realize you lost the race for us. And that's how serious it is for me. The process has to be key. My van might not be pretty and it might have 310,000 miles on it, but our team of two does details in under 2 hours most of the time. And that's how we maximize our profits. It's process. It's efficiency. And I totally forgot what my third one was.
Well, maybe I can speak on the process part of it while you're trying to think of the third one. And if you think of the third one, just go ahead, blurt it out, interrupt me. But a large part of what we do at Optimum is about process and procedure, right? We see it time and time again in the groups and everything like that. Every single spring, we have a whole batch of new detailers that come into the detailing industry. And by the way, if you are a new detailer, welcome to one of the best industries that you can learn from. It's a constant learning experience every single day. Thank you for listening to the podcast. But they come in and they think it is absolutely an impossibility to do, a wash, clay, and wax and stuff like that in 30 to 45 minutes. They just think you have to be a hack detailer in order to do that. No, you don't. If you have certain things set up and you have a team that is well trained in doing a process and procedure, you can absolutely crank out details in 30 minutes that are just as good a quality as you taking 2 to 4 hours to perform the exact same thing. Nobody questions the fact that McDonald's can make a burger in 30 seconds and it's there, it is in front of you, and it is edible somewhat, and you can eat it, but yet they don't draw the same comparison to the super expensive steakhouse that takes, let's just say 20 to 30 minutes to make your burger. It's technically the same thing. One is lower quality than the other one, obviously. Wait, that's probably a really bad comparison, isn't it?
Yes and no. That would stray me, and I remembered education was my other one, but that would stray me to tell people they should watch the McDonald's video. There's a movie on McDonald's, and it's powerful. It teaches you how they innovated, and that's what we should be doing. The fact that we think that the services should take the same amount of time they did 10 years ago just blows my mind. The industry should be growing and innovating and educating. And I mean, if we get to a detail and my two guys get out, because at this point I've pulled my back out twice in the last 4 weeks. And I don't see hardships as bad things. Me pulling my back out was the best thing that could have happened to me this month, because it's actually told me it's time to train your employees. So that's what I've been doing. And when they get out of the van, one of them needs to start on the driver's side as the vacuum tech, and one of them needs to start on the passenger side as the dash and detail tech. And if they don't start in that position, I stop them. And I go, what are you doing? And they're like, what do you mean what am I doing? I'm vacuuming the car. But yeah, but you're vacuuming from the passenger side rear. You should be starting with the driver's side front. And then you circle around each other so you don't crisscross or bang into each other. That's how we create efficiency. But people aren't picky enough about that. And I think they should be.
Yeah, there's all sorts of, once you start getting, so your first year as a detailer, your goals should be to start knocking off 20, 30 minutes off of certain things that you're doing in your process and your procedure, right? But year two, you're looking to knock off, let's just say 5 to 15 minutes off of procedures. Year 3, year 4, year 5, you start getting down to where it's, can I shave 30 seconds to a minute off of this process? Or can we use 1 ounce less product in this process, or whatever? You start to really hone in those fine details, and then all of a sudden you can actually detail a car in 2 hours, do a full detail or, whatever it might be.
Can I plug a product?
Absolutely.
When you're using a product like No Rinse.
Oh, no, you can't plug our own products on our own podcast. That's ridiculous. Get out of here.
I figured you'd like that, but the efficiency does come from product too. It's not necessarily about the compound that cuts the best. It's not necessarily about the exterior wash, the waterless product that makes the best shine. It's about efficiency, because we all know we can do the exterior wash and then add a sealant on top of that we already have in our van. We don't necessarily need an all-in-one that does that, but to be able to use the product that I use on the outside to also wipe the doors and to wipe the door jambs, and I even use it to clean the carpets. It's just like, can it get any more efficient than not walking back to get more bottles?
Yeah. Funnily enough, I actually talked to someone about this yesterday. There's a lot of tools, not all, but there's a lot of tools in the detailing industry and a lot of chemicals too that you can buy for really little to no money, right? So let's just take, for example, a regular clay bar. Almost always, the new detailers that come into the industry, they just cannot believe that an alternative clay method like towel, mitt, whatever, is better or more efficient or more cost effective than traditional clay. And part of my job as a regional manager is to try and help other business owners grow their business, be more efficient, and all these things. And I'm not typically the type of person that's going to tell you to go out and buy a $10,000 steamer. Like, will some of those tools make you more effective and efficient? Yes. But more often than not, it's the stuff that costs you under $100 that is making you the most inefficient. And if you just start off with that, then we can work on the really expensive stuff later, right? And absolutely. What is really frustrating is you make the recommendation of just trying out an alternative clay method. Like, yeah, you should just buy a towel or a mitt and see if it ends up being just as effective, cost efficient. And I can guarantee you that you will be more efficient from it. And people just won't do it. They're like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's like, it costs you $50. Like, that $50 could potentially make you thousands of dollars in efficiency gained, and you're not even willing to try it. And to me, that is probably one of the most frustrating and ludicrous things that I talk to people about on almost a daily basis. And it's the same way with No Rinse. People will just fight you tooth and nail if they have done the soap and water wash for, all their life, let's just say. And then you tell them, why don't you give this a shot? And it's almost like they act like the minute that O&R touches the paint surface, it's going to light it on fire and the vehicle's going to burn to the ground. Like, listen, man, like, your car's going to be fine. Like, if this product wouldn't have been around for 10 years, if something like that was going to happen, and you can literally Google search it. It takes 15 seconds to do a Google search and find out that there's been probably tens of thousands of people that have tried O&R or a similar product. You could try Wipeout from American Detailer Garage. Shout out to Billy Bogus, one of my good buddies.
Heck yeah.
I don't care what it is, but it's proven to work. Like, all you have to just try it. Just try it. Like, at the end of the day, you spent, I don't even know, I think a 32-ounce bottle of O&R costs $17. Like, stop going to Starbucks for 5 days and ordering your $5 coffee, and you can pay for freaking O&R. Yeah,
check your privilege, man.
Woo! Okay, let's get off of that one.
So education, I'm a segue here. You're talking about low-level, inexpensive items that can really maximize your business profits. How easy is it to sell a steam on a clean car? Like, you get there and you look at the carpets and you're like, this doesn't even really need a vacuum. I could probably blow this out. And people struggle to upsell on those vehicles. How many of you actually have a black light? We're talking about education and process. It's a $24 to $50 item, depending on the type that you get. And the most common place where you'll find stuff is right on that driver's side pillar where everyone sneezes. Mm. You walk over to that car and you go, I realize this looks really clean, but I need you to understand where I can bring it as a detailer because I have a skill and I have an OCD about me that does certain things that other people don't do. And let me show you one of them. And as soon as you show them that there's sneeze all over their door, it's common sense. It's only 50 extra bucks. I'll go through and hit every surface with steam and we'll wipe it down, make sure it's disinfected and not just clean.
Yeah, and not only that, but you're doing something that's incredibly visual to that to that customer, which will almost always sell them. That is one of the reasons why in the starter kit, when you come on as an authorized installer, we give them a Pro Plus kit because we want you to install it on your vehicle so that not only you can see, not only is it for you to test out the first install of Pro Plus, right? But it's also so that you can see the product and what its advantages are, but also take the customer out there, show them how the water runs off of it and how easy it is to clean. Like that is a visual representation of what that customer could have. And it's very similar to the black light. You show them the black light, the stained up door, pillar, whatever. And then you do a 5-minute cleaning and then you show them with the black light again. And all of a sudden there's no more yuckiness and glowy bits on the door. Right. And, yep. And they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And you potentially made $50 extra off of it.
Yeah, 50 and sometimes even more, depending on the size of the vehicle. I could take a car that's $150 and make it $800. And that's without ever doing it. All these guys are like, oh, $800, you must be doing a coating. Bro, I do interiors on average for $700. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not joking. This isn't a game for me. I go out because I've got 4 employees to pay. I've got taxes to pay. I've got insurance. I've got overhead. We have to average $100 to $125 an hour. So my guys know if you don't upsell, you're making minimum wage. It's kind of crappy, but you're making more than minimum wage. I don't pay my guys that cheap. But if you spend a week not upselling and not educating the client, because that's our top priority, you're not helping the business grow. So you're not going to be getting bonuses. You're not going to be getting spiffs or percentages of anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did something kind of similar with my employees, but I won't go into it right now. But my employees were just as invested in the customer experience as I was because of the culture that I ended up creating. Okay, Jonathan, before I move into the last question of the show, is there anything else that you want to touch on or anything like that?
Oh, I could talk for days, man. That's a dangerous question. All I really want to hit home is that we live and breathe Operation Mission Detail. We hold events once a year, and we're doing an event this year. It's going to be, I believe, in August, and it's usually for a local family that's got a child with cancer or is going through some kind of struggle, and we just do details, and it pulls everybody together. Last year we had 8 different detailers come from 4 different states, and we had 3 different companies that gave us the materials. We pay nothing for these events. All I do is show up and detail cars or direct traffic. Everything else is paid for. And that's how powerful you are as a business owner, to be able to go out there and get in your community and go, you know what? I'm not just a business owner. I want to take the money that you're paying me and I want to improve our community. That's my goal.
Okay.
Do it more. That's all I got to say is do it. Get in your communities, whether it's on Facebook or whether it's in person. Get to your Chamber of Commerce. Get out there and grind, guys.
All right. So last question of the show is, what is a question that you have for our community, the Optimum Synergy podcast community, that you would like to ask our audience? Something that's on your mind, or it could be a call to action that you want them to do. What is something that you would like to get feedback on?
That could be such a loaded question. This is that surprise question you talked about, huh?
Yes, sir.
I guess I could answer this 2 ways. The first one would be, when are we going to actually fund Operation Mission Detail? It's Andrew and I's goal to be able to get into an RV, whether it's branded or not, and travel city to city in the United States holding events and helping folks in need through detail. And it would be an educational piece. Every city that we went in, we would train people and teach people detail, but we'd also hold an event to change people's lives. And it's more about community than it is about the money that we raise. So that would be one of my answers. When are you going to fund it? And then the other answer would be, I want to see more. I want to see more. I love that you guys are building a training center, and I'm excited. I'm following it, and Yvonne's in our group, in our live group, and he shares some stuff, which is I'm so flattered that he takes the time to do that, because he doesn't have to do that. And I love the video that he did, and he was just showing the area, and he was like, "This is going to be our training center." And I'm the kind of guy that sees an empty room, and it's not an empty room. It's a big old production, and there's something going on there. I don't see what is. I see what can be, and I think a lot of detailers do that. I think they don't see a crappy car, they see a shiny car, and I want to see more of that. I want to see more of what you're building, and that's what I teach people is take us through the ride. Show me where are you going to train? Where are you going to put the polish station? What kind of polishers are going to use? What's going on? Just more. I want more.
All right. Jonathan, where can people get a hold of you if they have any questions?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is Facebook. A lot of folks like to do phone calls, but again, I don't do it for my clients, and they pay me. So if you're trying to get a hold of me and you're calling me, it's the least effective way. Text message or shoot me a message through Facebook would be your best bet.
All right. And if you're okay with it, when the show is done, if you want to send me a link, I'll put your Facebook link in the description of the podcast. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come onto the podcast. I really appreciate it. You guys out there that are listening, pay the fee. You know what the fee is. If you don't know what the fee is, hit me up and I'll tell you what the fee is. But Jonathan, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, sir. And thank you again for coming on.
You too, my friend. Every day as it's your last. It makes every day easy.
I will do that. Thank you.
All right, brother.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Optimum Synergy Podcast. We look forward to seeing you next week. Hope you enjoyed the ride.